Story 1. Even so, no special government employee should have the ability to independently act like Musk does. Imagine how upset Republicans would have been if Biden had called Malala Yousafzai a special government employee and she used her authority to take over and direct the Department of Education. Much to their dismay, her direction would be to teach Americans about human rights, especially women's rights. They would have rioted. That they have no problem with it now merely betrays how they think about politics. Us versus them. Story 2. I think for all the previous hyperbole about shadow governments, he is the embodiment of shadow government control. He has apparently been given broad control over several key financial functions. There is no consent process for him assuming power. He is subject to no actual oversight and not accountable to voters. It is truly terrifying. Forget Trump, he is a bumbling idiot. Musk is the literal threat to our country. Congress needs to be courageous and stop him. Story 3. I think it's insane that he holds billions of dollars in government contracts and is also an employee. The conflict of interest is so big, your mother looks small next to it. Story 4. What I think is, it doesn't matter what Trump calls him. Everything going on here is unconstitutional and extremely illegal. I suspect charges of treason could be pressed. The Federal Bureau of Investigation should be arresting him and ceasing all his operations by force. But we all know who the Federal Bureau of Investigation answers to now. Story 5. It is just a cover so they can muddy his legal standing in accessing and stealing government information he is not legally authorized to possess. It is like robbing a bank while wearing a bank employee name tag. Story 6. Dangerous centralized power beyond the reach of Congress. That's autocratic. But hey, the voters wanted this, so it's on them and the Republicans. To retaliate, states should pass amendments to not pay federal tax anymore. Story 7. Special government employee is defined in regulations. It is fairly heavily regulated, without assuming anyone will actually enforce those rules on Musk. National Institutes of Health has a pretty good training that outlines all the special government employee requirements, including ethics, financial disclosures, conflict of interest, terms of service, etc. Story 8. It's nonsense, the thinnest veneer to distract us with discussions of what is a special government employee and if that protects him. He's an unelected immigrant who has gained illegal access to government computer systems. Any system administrator worth their salt would consider every system that has left the care of federal employees' hands to be radioactive and in need of a complete wipe. Story 9. He has all the privilege of an elected official, unfireable and unregulated. Even if the majority of Congress agreed to fire him, I bet it wouldn't happen. Story 10. I don't remember voting for him, and I don't remember him being actually employed by the United States government. But apparently, we're now giving him and his X-Men full access to all government records. Story 11. Makes Republicans look slimy as well. But George Soros, one of the richest men in the world, is funding Democrats. What is that? Musk literally buys an election in broad daylight and no Republicans bat an eye. Story 12. At least there is an actual designation, special government employee, as such which until now would have criteria such as special government employees are subject to the same ethics standards as other federal employees. Special government employees must comply with conflict of interest laws. Special government employees must file a confidential financial disclosure report. Special government employees are limited to providing services for up to 130 days in a 365-day period. Special government employees are prohibited from acting as an agent or attorney before the government. Special government employees must not participate in matters affecting their personal financial interests. However, compliance with the law is not the strong suit of certain individuals or their associates. Story 13. That the executive branch does not have the authority to fill such a position without a congressional confirmation hearing. That is not to say that the executive branch will not get away with it, of course. More and more, it is looking like it does not matter who has what authority on paper if no one is willing to enforce the law. Story 14. Stupid. But also, what does Elon have on Trump? He is a narcissist, and Elon is stealing all his limelight. He's making him look like the puppet we know he is, but still, he already stole the attention with the whole Nazi salute situation. One would have thought Trump would be upset at all this attention on Musk and not him, which would be bothering him. Story 15. Any president is entitled to hire advisors. The issue is what Elon has been given access to, his actual qualifications, the real reason he is there buying his way in, and what his personal motives are. Not to mention a valid concern. No checks or balances are being placed to ensure he doesn't abuse this for personal gain. Story 16. Seems like it's a cover for him to be able to do what he wants, however he wants to, without any hindrance, oversight, or reason, other than he's a paying subscriber. Which is what's happening. Story 17. This is purely an after-the-fact excuse and nothing about the laws will be applied to Elon Musk, and he will go beyond any reasonable interpretation of them. Story 18. It's a dumb game, but it's very clearly to avoid the regular accountability that appointees are subject to when they serve the government. After his 5-month term is over, they'll just reappoint him to it until Musk stops doing well by conservatives. Story 19. I'm no Trump fan, so don't get me wrong. I'm not defending him, but what did you think was going to happen? Trump and his supporters have zero, absolutely zero, concern for checks and balances, for what the law says and for the spirit of the law. Nothing. He has demonstrated an utter lack of concern for anything other than what he wants. He will be happy to take issues to the Supreme Court, knowing full well he will outlast most everyone. He's done it in business and government for all of us to see repeatedly, yet you are still surprised? Buckle up because we are only in week 3. Story 20. Oh, it'll be fine. He's just here to get rid of unelected bureaucracy and prevent oligarchs from taking over the government. Now wait just 1 second. Story 21. I remember growing up and hearing all about these checks and balances in American politics that supposedly existed to prevent something just like this from happening. Where are those exactly? Story 22. How can people be so deluded? How is this allowed? This is how it started in Germany in the 1930s. Hitler was what they got. First they came for the communists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. Then they came for the Catholics, and I didn't speak up because I was a Protestant. Then they came for me, and by that time, no one was left to speak up. Martin Niemöller. Story 23. Where is the contract? Where is a record of him taking an oath to protect and defend the United States Constitution? Where is his security clearance? Who vetted him besides Trump? Story 24. It's complete nonsense, and I will repeat it over and over until the message sinks in. He's unelected and arguably the most powerful man in the world, not American, is a megalomaniac and needs to be stopped. The Constitution, as written and intended, should be disallowing this foreign influence. Wake up, Americans. Story 25. We live in a bizarre world. An unelected, narcissistic individual has the keys to the most sensitive and highest positions of government because another criminal in an unearned position allowed it. Story 26. Are we just making up titles and qualifications now? What about his high school lackeys that he is helping him? Are they special government employees now too? Story 27. I am afraid that anything we say negative about him could very well be used against us at one point, so I do not want to touch that question with a 10-foot pole. Story 28. It took 2 weeks for someone to read the manual and find out about special government employees and tell the higher-ups in the White House to make Musk a special government employee to give his actions a veneer of legitimacy. That he has no official government position was an easy challenge to what Musk is doing and did not give conservative judges or justices an out. Story 29. I assume that he now has all authority to do basically whatever he feels like doing. He bought Trump, so he effectively is outside of the governmental oversight. Now he just has a fancy title to lend a little more credence to his authority. Story 30. It's a lie. He's not a government employee any more than I would be an employee of a restaurant if I gave a big enough tip to get a special order. I'm a big tipper, not the chef. Story 31. It's absurd. There's no accountability for his actions. He also has vested interests that conflict with government funds. The days of law and order are gone. Story 32. Call me crazy, But can you be a government employee and the chief executive officer of a company with government contracts at the same time? Seems like that would go against your employment agreement. Definitely brings up some conflict of interest issues. Story 33. All those years of right-wing conspiracy theorists screaming about influential billionaires controlling our country. And here we are, yet they are all quiet. Two-faced individuals. Story 34. Honestly, what is a special government employee? Under what legal authority do they operate? Is that something that exists? Or is it someone who broke his brain with ketamine and thinks he's a fascist James Bond? Story 35. I have worked for a state-level government agency in the past, for nearly a decade. We were heavily monitored on what information we accessed, such as computer systems, websites, and emails. If it seemed like we accessed something we didn't need for a job duty, we were questioned by human resources. We were not given access to systems that were not necessary to perform our job, so different roles had access to different systems and information. This was done to maintain the confidentiality and privacy of the people of that state. If he is a special government employee, then he should be held to the same standards as other government employees and only have access to systems that are necessary to complete his job role. He should also have to submit requests and be approved for clearance to different systems. Story 36. Browsing the headlines at the Washington Post, I saw a headline stating that Trump is letting Elon run rampant because he and the Republicans are using him as a third-party wrecking ball to do the dirty work that they want while technically keeping their own hands clean. That way, Democrats can't use the utter gutting of popular government departments and programs against them in future elections. Also, if it somehow gets so bad that even supporters of Make America Great Again start showing signs of dissent, then they can make a big show of kicking Musk out while behind the scenes they know he'll be getting off scot-free. What are they going to do? Fine him? His bank account probably wouldn't even notice the money was missing. Deport him? He likely has top-quality estates all over the globe. Story 37. Employees should be paid. There's a special arrangement if otherwise. The question is, why is he doing this? We know the answer, but we're putting it out there for those who don't think for themselves. Story 38. Special government employee. Like Russia's special military operation. Putting special in the title is a funny cop-out for illegal and unethical activity. Moving forward, I am now on a special personal savings plan, and therefore no longer have to pay taxes. Story 39. It's a bit of a mouthful. They should just say co-president. This is also snappier than other alternatives such as owner of the republic, purchaser of the democracy, or hut-mouthed Zafar Nazi co-dictator of the imperialist dynasty. Story 40. Everybody needs to write and call their senators and representatives. And yes, actually do it yourself, as automated emails are reportedly going directly to their spam folders. Demand an investigation into why a private, unelected individual and a group of his interns, all with no security clearance, have been handed full access to the Treasury, Social Security, and the banking information, including Social Security numbers of private citizens, and why he apparently has the power to pull funding from government agencies on a whim, sidestepping Congress entirely. Not only is it unconstitutional, it is a massive national security threat. Perhaps remind them that if Musk and his associates were Democrats, then they would have been rotting in a federal prison for treason yesterday. It's really sickening that the people who have the power to stop this, or at least slow it down, are just sitting back and letting it happen. Of course, if your representatives and senators are Republicans, they are likely okay with this. Story 41. That if you have enough money, you can literally do whatever you want, and you are literally above the law, unlike what people have been told to think. Story 42. We are finally at the moment where hundreds or even thousands of government employees are going to need to stand up for the Constitution they protect and not the orders from their boss. I am not optimistic. Story 43. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility hire special, for example, autism spectrum employee. We need more special employees like this. Thousands of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility hires along with other needed employees. Story 44. Genuine question. How can this not be a conflict of interest in even the broadest of categories, with someone being in a very high, influential position and also benefiting as the chief executive officer of a company that holds government contracts? Story 45. America is over. We have a convicted felon with the nuclear codes. We have a drug addict with control over the computers. Everyone head for Cuba before it's too late. Story 46. If you are an American voter, please contact your 3 members of Congress today. All members of Congress tally the contact they get from the district on legislation. Significant outcry can sometimes change how the politician behaves because everyone wants to get reelected. Be polite and straightforward. The 21-year-old answering the phones and reading emails doesn't deserve to be treated poorly. 5 calls, fight against Elon Musk's government takeover can give you all the information you need. Story 47. My question is, assuming we put better people back in place in 4 years, will they be able to look back at everything he did so they can prosecute him if needed? Story 48. It's insane. With no reason to concern himself with future re-election, I think Trump is going to waste this term doing everything possible to enrich his family and his friends. Beyond that, he doesn't care about anything or anyone.